really. The reason why we're recording this Zoom meeting is because of the depth, really, of the effect that 1852 as incarceration has created. He was released after last week's shenanigans in the administrative courts in Cardiff, where we got the judge to continue, knowing that we didn't have the assignment of consent. We've already talked about that, and that all claims should have been stopped at that point. There was pleading procedure off the back of that created, and an order was sent out from what appeared to be the administrative courts in Cardiff to every single government agency, every court, every NHS email address that was in the public domain, which we were copied into, which states that due to what was determined directly or indirectly by the actions of Sir Wynne Williams, who is actually a retired judge, so he was actually impersonating a judge, with his delusion of grandeur and an illusion of a hierarchy system, that we are obviously stating that we don't support, with our belief. So the only people who are not suffering from such a delusion are us. And they've turned around and released him. Then the order states that anybody who's unlawfully incarcerated for non-victim crimes to be released. Anybody who's in contempt of that order can be committed straight to a secured unit. And they released M.N. 1852 on Friday, unbeknown to anybody, apparently. And they immediately sectioned him using Section 2 of the Mental Health Act, saying that he was suffering delusions of grandeur by saying that he was a minister of his own energy and matter and movement. That's what Minister M.N. is abbreviated to imply. Not that I am the minister of the universe and that you all need to bow before me, such as what is implied by their definition of their illusion of the ecclesiastical system as a structure. So we were talking to somebody a couple of days ago saying that the only thing left to rebut now and have them determined as invalid is the ecclesiastical system and structure of hierarchy as a delusionary mindset. And lo and behold, due to them determining that anybody claiming to be a minister is suffering from delusions of grandeur, then that incorporates every single being that's claimed a title of that ecclesiastical system, whether they're a prime minister, whether they're a minister of church, or whether they're a minister of medicine. So it's taken the whole shit show out from the Pope down to the doctors. They're ministers of law, ministers of legal indoctrination systems, ministers of education, ministers of agriculture. They've all been deemed as being sectionable. So I don't know what it is that we're waiting for. 1852 was smashed the hole right where it needed to go. By doing what he did, and obviously they couldn't keep him in the prison any longer. So yes, okay, we haven't unlawfully incarcerated him, so we can't be in contempt of court. But now it's the NHS that have got him. So yeah, he's actually turned around to us and said, "Hang fire," because there's some things that he wants to just take care of while he's still there. Obviously, he's got a captive audience, no pun intended, with other people who are also unlawfully incarcerated using sections of this man-made legislation. When it comes to somebody coming at you and saying, there's things such as this compared to my delusional state, you're delusional. The obvious rebuttal is that here you are. Let's examine the definition of delusional and grandiose, first of all. In order for me to be suffering from delusions of grandeur, like we said, there has to be an implication that something is grand. Well, I don't see anything grand about hierarchical terrorism systems and slavery systems, to be perfectly honest. And the fact that you're actually sitting there implying that you can assess me based on your delusional state, first of all, because you are sitting there believing and implying that you've got some authority over me, which would imply that you invest and credit a delusional state. And that you're in your delusional state, you think you've got some kind of jurisdiction over me. Again, a rather grandiose delusion. So what he's actually done is, we were talking about this on Friday. We knew that he'd been released. I was talking to 1367, and we were just like school kids. We didn't know why, and we just said that we both felt that that the gates had opened and he'd gone and he was out. But then obviously we thought, well, why hasn't he contacted us? And so we didn't really have much to say about it until now. Every single habeas corpus that we've ever served, rebutting the presumption of the Mental Health Act, because it is unlawful incarceration, whichever way you dress it up, is that it can't be implied, obviously, unless they've caused harm, loss, or damage to another living being, that they've committed a crime. The whole point of the law is very simple. You don't have to spend hours learning it. Do no harm, loss, and cause no damage. And so that any kind of legislation or man-made definition that does cause harm, loss, or damage is, as Sir Win Williams kindly assigned his consent to grant warrant to issue the order with that determination, clearly states. So we just wanted to do this Zoom really to connect those pieces together for people who are looking at these documents and saying, well, what does it mean? It means that even by your own indoctrinated state mindset, you can no longer continue to presume or pretend that this system has got any authority. Authority comes from author, obviously, and who is it who's writing this? We are. We by us consenting to using legal fiction and to paying our taxes and using their slave tokens, accepting their medicine in the form of poison, and calling it and putting our trust in such a structure is what obviously renders us incapacitated legal minors. Now, obviously, that's not the case when you've reached legal majority and you know the implications of using that legal fiction and you don't do it, then, as has been exemplified yet again, if you do not use the name, they cannot keep you because they cannot pay themselves. What you're actually doing, your party to, is a fraudulent claim, and you are actually claiming against yourself and using their legal fiction in order for that to happen. So as long as you don't do that, as is exemplified here, they have to drop you like a hot potato. Okay, some people might think, which has crossed my mind, you know, people look at that and go, well, he's out of the frying pan and into the fire. He's, you know, any time at all, 1852 could have peacefully surrendered to the administrative system and picked up that legal fiction and said, I've had enough, let me out of here. Obviously, if he'd done that, he wouldn't have been let out of there. He would have been kept longer because now the company, the Serco, the private prisons, HMCTS, HMP, the Crown Corporation, UK government, they could all have laundered his credit file, his equitable rights, through him granting those equitable rights back to that legal fiction. And as long as you do not do that and you put your trust in universal law, this is the result. So obviously we need to be prepared if that's what we're going to do, and that's why those steps are put in place for people to follow. But most importantly, these things that you can use in any way that this system is trying to imply any jurisdiction over you. You can, obviously we'll put the the case file up on the groups, so people can relate back to, on this day, on the 5th of November 2021, Emma Van 1852 effectively set fire to the whole ecclesiastical structure, was put on the bonfire of our egos, really, is what occurred. So we're going to go and receive him back into our community, as that is the only agreement, assignment of consent that he's given in this all the way along. And publicly, really just want to thank him for everything that he's done, and that we love him. So I'm going to stop recording.